I had been on birth control then for about till I was 21, and so that's actually the age when I got married to my husband. And so we had gotten married in 2013, and even before we got married, when we were dating, from time to time we would talk about children and growing our family and, you know, what that would look like for us. And so we always wanted to have lots of children. After we had actually gotten married, sometimes I would joke that we would end up pregnant right away, and but there was still this part inside of me that told me that that was not going to happen. So it was about a month after we had gotten married when we just felt like the Lord was telling us to stop using all contraceptives, and so we did. So of course we weren't using anything to prevent for about 9 months until we actually decided to initially start trying. So as the months sort of went on, you know, I'm keeping a journal, I'm tracking my cycles and every symptom and everything, taking my prenatals, you know, and just sort of easing our way into this. And so, you know, after the first few months, it was kind of like, well, you know, that's a bummer, but, you know, we haven't been trying that long. And then, you know, as month after month after month would occur, and test after test would be negative, you know, we started to kind of wonder what could be going on, or, you know, what could be preventing us from conceiving. As I had just mentioned, I had been on birth control, I think it was low estrogen, about 5 years before I even got married. However, after I had gotten off the pill, it was immediately, almost immediately, that my cycles were regular, or regular-ish for the most part. And so, but once we got to about the 1.5 year mark, it was like there's something not happening, there's something that could be preventing us from conceiving. So around that 1.5 year mark is when we decided to really buckle down and do as much research as we could. And so, you know, so we did, and, you know, we tried all the simple techniques and, you know, lifestyle changes and things, and, you know, the things that we could control, things that we could do in our own power that that were not invasive, that were not extreme measures. And so we, you know, would do all those different things, and we realized that this isn't helping either. So about when we reached the 2-year mark is when we knew that something was wrong, that there was something hindering us from conceiving. And so that's when we had decided to see a doctor. So right before we had went to our first doctor's appointment for me to get checked out, I have believed to have experienced an early miscarriage. Now, this was not confirmed because, long story short, I decided not to test, you know, to save myself grief, because I had a doctor's appointment coming up, and so I figured they can do the test, you know, and that. But but I had experienced what I did, and I felt like I had lost something, and you know, I just didn't feel right. It was like I knew, and so, but that was not confirmed. But anyhow, so my first doctor's appointment, you know, I told her about my experience, and you know, with us trying to conceive and not having any luck. After she had done all the normal checkup things, you know, the pap and the breast exam and, you know, all that good stuff, she had suggested that I come in and have some ultrasounds done on my ovaries to make sure that my follicles were producing mature eggs, as well as producing these eggs, because if you're not ovulating, then you're not going to get pregnant. So the results of my ultrasound kind of confirmed what she was thinking, that I may not have been producing mature follicles, thus not ovulating or ovulating regularly. So she referred to us a fertility specialist, and what she had suggested is that I go have an HSG done. And what an HSG stands for is histosalpingogram, which is this big word that basically means that they fill up your uterus with this dye, which then will determine whether or not your tubes are open the way that they should be or closed, which means that there are some sort of blockages within your tubes, that they fill up your uterus with this dye that is then supposed to move through your tubes, and then they put an x-ray over you to determine whether or not the dye was able to move through your tubes, thus meaning that they're open. Now, if they see that the dye is stopped, that means that there are some sort of blockages there, and that they would have to go in there eventually and clean that all out. Because if there are any blockages and you end up conceiving, well, then the embryo is not able to move all the way through your tube and into your uterus to implant. So more than likely it would implant in your tube, which then is an ectopic pregnancy. And an ectopic pregnancy is very risky for your health. No matter what, the baby will not survive. And not only would you lose your tube, that you could lose your tube quite possibly, but that if you are unaware of this ectopic pregnancy right away, then the tube could rupture and then you could bleed to death, basically. So it's very important that I would have this procedure done. So I went in for my HSG appointment and had the procedure done. It was not pleasant, but very worth it. And so eventually we got our results back, and my doctor thought that my right tube looked like it was at least partially closed. For some reason, whether call it, instinct or conviction, what have you, we felt like that was not the case, like that was not true. So we had made an appointment with our fertility specialist just to get like another opinion, a second opinion. And so we did, and he looked the ultrasound pictures over, and he thought that my right tube was not closed. Just exactly what we're thinking, and we're so glad that we got a second opinion, because my previous doctor, she was wanting to have them do a laparoscopy, which is basically where they make a small incision, and then they stick a camera in there and they look around to see where, you know, the blockages could be, and then they take this tools and clean out that blockage. And so, but we just felt like we shouldn't do it, and that was confirmation to us that there was no blockage. And so, before taking any further steps, especially more than likely being invasive steps, we decided that we were going to talk with somebody who knew a lot about vitamins and natural, you know, to help with fertility. And so we did, and we've got, you know, all these vitamins and things to help with that. Well, eventually, a few months later, I had some spotting, and, well, I mean, it was light bleeding, okay, and I just kind of wrote it off as period, you know, and I thought, wow, I'm off the hook this time. I'm not cramping very bad, you know, my periods were light, you know, this is great. And so, you know, a few days went by, and then I just remember my stomach hurting so bad and getting up in the middle of the night and just getting sick. I mean, I don't think I had anything left in my stomach. I was as sick as a dog. And so I knew that there was something going on. I didn't know what it actually was, which happened to be the one thing that I would have least expected it to be. That night, I could hardly sleep. I was tossing and turning. I just couldn't get comfortable. And Billy at one point had asked me, you know, if I thought that I needed to go to the emergency room. And of course, me, I'm stubborn, you know, and it's well, you know, I'm just gonna try to toughen this out and just try and go to sleep, and you know, and so then the next morning I had gotten up, and I got to where the pain, I just could not tolerate the pain, and so I had called my sister-in-law to come and pick up Maya, which, by the way, is a whole different story. We get the privilege to raise her, and that's all I'll say about that. Since she was 3 months old, she's almost 2. But to have my sister-in-law come and pick her up and take care of her for me, and then I was going to have her take me to the ER, but my mom and dad actually live not too far from us, and so I kind of wanted my mom with me, so I told my sister-in-law just to go ahead and drop me off at my parents', and my mom was going to take me. That way she could stay with me because my sister-in-law couldn't. And so she did, and I just remember, you know, I felt like I was in there forever. I felt like it was an eternity. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours I was in there waiting. And so then eventually, one of the nurses comes back to have me urinate in a cup so they could do a pregnancy test. And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. Sorry if you hear that noise, like people are shooting their gun outside, so it's like making an echo. Anyways, and so a nurse comes back and she sits down at her computer desk and is typing something out. And she says, "Well, we've got your results from your test back." And she asked me, she says, "Has anybody talked to you about your results yet?" I said no, not thinking anything of it. She looks at me and she says, "Well, your test came back positive. You are pregnant." I was in absolute shock. I think after trying for so long, it just was like, it was like a dream, like it wasn't reality. But at the same time, it was like, even hearing this news, I knew something was wrong. So I couldn't be joyful, I couldn't be excited, I couldn't open up my heart to this fact. My mom's immediate response was, "Oh my goodness." I mean, she just gasped and was like, "They've been trying for so long, oh my gosh." And, like she was so excited. But, that was kind of a moment where I felt bad because she was excited, I guess. It was like chaos around me from that point on. They had me put on a gown and they were checking my blood pressure and, it was very high. And so that way I wouldn't go into shock, they immediately were injecting me with morphine to help with the pain. So I called Billy, and I wasn't really sure how to just come out and say it. When I called him, I just said, "Honey, I'm pregnant, but something's wrong." And it was like he didn't quite get it, so he asked me again, and so I repeated myself, and he just said, "Oh yeah?" And I told him, I said, you need to come here. I need you." And he said, "All right, I'm leaving right now." And so he left work and he got up there, and I think around that time he had called his mother, and so she came up and she was there with me. And I just I remember our pastor and his wife at the time came by to pray for us, and somebody who we actually went to church with was actually one of the nurses there, and so he came by and see how I was doing, and then around that time I just had this sudden urge to urinate, and so my mom got up with me and helped me to the bathroom, and I did my business, and then I just felt this thing come out of me, and I got up and I looked in the toilet, and there was the baby. It looked like it was, of course it was in the sack, it was about this big, and then had the fleshy stuff connected to it, which was the placenta. I was in shock. I just did not know what to do. I remember almost reaching down and just grabbing it out of the toilet, but then I remember my mom, she had said something and kind of discouraged me from doing that, and I just remember just staring at it and just being completely out of my head. And I flushed it down the toilet. Never in a million years would I ever think that that would be something that I would end up doing. But I did. And it affected me for a very long time. It was definitely a test of my faith. For one, all my pain, or most of my pain, was on my right side. And with describing my pain to the nurses, they had thought that maybe it was ectopic, but I kept saying, I trust you, Lord, I trust you, Lord. And I did, and I do. But I believed that there was nothing wrong with my tube, that it was fine, and then that's a little after, that is when I miscarried. But that was a test of my faith, I think, and then this whole experience was such a big test of my faith, whether or not I still trusted God's plans, whether I still thought that God is still good. And I did, and I do, and sometimes I feel like He allows things to happen to not only strengthen and mature us, so that we can gain knowledge and even gain a heart for people who have experienced these same things. But for whatever reason, when you're in God's will, He uses these things for His glory, and sometimes it's hard to understand that, to comprehend that. But when we are in the will of the Lord, I believe that He uses these things to mold us, to help create within us a heart like His. So after this experience, I was depressed for a while, but I feel like God grew me so much through this and has matured me, and He did so many positive things through this as well. I mean, just creating within me a heart like His. I think, I look at things so differently now, and there's just so much good that has came out of it. It's amazing. Within about 4 months after that, I was confident and just, ready to conquer the world again. And I had a chemical pregnancy. And so I was so discouraged, and I was angry at God. And so, life is so much better with God than without. And so instead of shunning God like I was punishing Him, I decided that I was going to throw myself a pity party. And, of course, that didn't help anything. I eventually broke down, and I just got on my knees, and I think my heart being at its lowest point ever, I think having allowed myself to be vulnerable in front of God, and allowing Him to mold me into the person that He wants me to be, I think has really allowed my perspective to change on so many things. And you know, it's like I look at the world so differently now. And I mean, it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing when you go through these hardships. I feel like that those are the best times to allow God to be able to move within you and make you more like Him. And I believe that it really has. I'm not perfect. I'm not boasting myself on high because I'm just awesome, you know, but I am bragging about how wonderful God is, and even though His ways are not our ways, and sometimes He allows things to happen that we just don't understand, He is still good. And so now we are, you know, we're still TTCing. We are actually going to order a semen analysis online because it's cheaper, and so we'll be doing that anytime now to have that done. And just kind of see from there. I've started using digital OPKs. Excuse me. The advanced digital, I think it's by Clear Blue, which tells you when you are getting ready to ovulate and then when you are ovulating, and if you're not like fertile at all, if you're not like anywhere, you know, anywhere near being fertile or ovulating. And so I've started those, and I think those are wonderful. And I've only used it for one cycle, and I'm going to start using them again here within about a week. And you know, we'll see where that, see how that goes. And if Billy's count is good, then we'll just continue doing what we're doing. And if it shows that I am ovulating as well, then I don't know what we'll do. But if I'm not ovulating or ovulating consistently, then I am going to be given Clomid, more than likely, to help me to ovulate. And if Billy's sperm are not many, are not enough, then they're going to prescribe him a certain vitamin or vitamins to help with that. And so we're just gonna see what happens, and we know that God is faithful, and when He promises you something, He means it. He's not gonna change His mind. And so yeah, we'll keep you guys up to date. I may record this cycle, this current cycle, and you know, see what happens. I may end up doing live pregnancy tests for you guys if you want to see that for this cycle. But thank you guys so much for watching, and it's gonna make you stronger. It's making you stronger. You just gotta hang in there, because you'll get through it, and there is support. And I love you. Mwah. And thank you again so much for watching. And if you have not subscribed, subscribe if you want to. And like, and leave your comments below.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.